Well, really today I want to talk to you guys what I call believe to achieve. 3 key shifts to effortless enrollment. And really the secret sauce that I want to share here today is 3 things, right? I'm going to talk to you guys one thing that I call our sales operating system. So we're going to help you guys install a new sales operating system here today. I'm going to show you really the frameworks that I use to double my revenue and double my closing rate so I don't have to be necessarily salesy and sleazy about it, right? And then third, I'm going to show you the old way and the old world of selling and really compare that to the new approach that I've honed and crafted and learned from some of my mentors here today. So here's my intention. I want to help you guys upgrade your sales operating system so that ultimately you're able to do 3 things. 1 is powerfully enroll more people into your service, product, or program. 2, make a whole bunch more money without feeling salesy, gimmicky, or sleazy. And 3rd, really scale your impact and serve clients on a whole new level, right? Because this is the same operating system that I learned, developed, and optimized the past 6+ years. So last year, I actually closed $1.4 million in revenue all in 1 year. And so who possibly wants to learn that today? Any raise of hands? Awesome, cool. And then so I want to impose to you guys a quick important question, which is what would doubling your income and impact mean for you personally, right? And I think every great salesperson is not the best pitcher, they're not the best presenter, they're really the person who asks the best questions. And so there's a difference between these 2 sales guys. This is me at a very young age, no beard yet. My beautiful mother, my dad before he lost a shit ton of weight, and my sister before she glowed up. And then this is me after closing my first $154,000 revenue month, cash collected, right? And so I think back to my younger self and I try to figure out what was the one thing that actually led to that change. And I really thought about it. It was only really one core shift. And it started with a fundamental shift of my beliefs, my principles, and my associations when it came to sales. This guy on the left had a very negative and very disempowering belief when it came to sales. This guy on the right has a very powerful, positive association and belief system. And that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. Because I think back to Tony Robbins, he's been a huge inspiration for me. He always talks about this idea of belief shifting and getting in the right state and understanding your actual energy. And he always said many people are passionate, but because of their limiting beliefs about who they are and what they can do, they never take actions that can make their dream a reality. And so what I started to realize when I started sales coaching for the first time about 1.5 years ago, I would teach all these people tactics and strategies and hey, you just got to say it like this. And then I would say, hey, Susie, how'd the call go? Did you implement on the tactic? And she's like, no. I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, you told me what to say, but I just couldn't say it for whatever reason. And I started to figure out, well, why is that? And I realized I was trying to give them all these tactics and strategies, but I never fundamentally changed what was the most important thing, their belief. And so this is the number one problem. I truly believe that 95% of entrepreneurs, coaches, and even sales pros whose whole job is to enroll people are using an outdated sales operating system. It worked back in the 60s, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but guess what, y'all? It's 2023, and the world has changed. It's a new world. So why haven't people updated their approach to selling? So here's how most people are operating on the left. You. Right? The old telephone landline and the guy she told you not to worry about, the iPhone, right? And so here's the truth, right? You could probably still make a dial to a person who has a landline and that phone's still gonna work, isn't it? But when we're talking about communication in a modern world, we have to adapt to the new way of things if what we want to do is really make the money, make the impact, and make the influence that we know is possible. And so, does anyone know what this is? What is that? A green text. What's a green text? Why does a green text happen? When you're
You don't have an iPhone.
exactly, you don't have exactly because you got an Android, right? And hey, there's nothing wrong with that because you can actually communicate with people with a group chat. But there's something else that's happening, right? And I invite you to really consider this. You can still upgrade to the modern way of selling, but if you don't have the right optimization for how you're actually communicating with people, there's a little bit of distrust that happens. Even Drake made a song about it. He said, text go green, it hits a little different, all right? And Gen Z, I'm not Gen Z, I'm a millennial, all right? But how Gen Z thinks about this, text go green, it hits a little different. Say, ew, you have an Android, please don't text me. Sorry, Antoinette. All right, see, so you locked and loaded, right? But here's the business translation. When you fail to communicate effectively in our modern world, you fail to authentically connect with your potential client. And they subconsciously grow a little bit distrustful towards you and ultimately take their business elsewhere, right? Like, I don't know anyone here is single, but if I see a green text from a girl, maybe I'm like, okay, cool, she's communicating, but she got an Android. We can't do any emojis or any of those voice memos, right? So the communication's still there, but the potential that I can take that communication, voice memos, emojis, sending her videos without looking like a potato quality thing. Like, that's the difference here. So I want you guys to really think about how can I upgrade my operating system to really communicate effectively in this world, right? Because the iOS, that's the beliefs and principles. The apps are the strategy and tactics. I could help any person learn all the strategies, all the tactics. I could help them install all the apps. But if their iOS is not updated to the newest operating system, guess what happens? iPhone goes, hey, sorry, you need to update this. You can't use this app. And that's the problem that I realized. I kept trying to install apps into people who still didn't install the right operating system, right? So here's my intention for us is if you want to properly use the strategies that I teach in Ignite and teach tomorrow, I'll talk a little bit tactics and strategies, we got to really update our belief system, right? To effectively get what we ultimately desire in life. So here's the first belief shift is you must influence yourself before you can influence others.
Write that down.
Write it down. Before you can influence yourself, you must first influence yourself before you can influence others. There you go. So about two and a half years ago, I was in a very interesting spot in life. It was about COVID, and I remember I was doing okay in sales, but I wasn't reaching my full potential, right? I was probably closing around 15%, 20% on a good month. And I remember thinking, I need help. I need to level up, not so I can make more money, but also because I know my potential as a sales pro and as an old business owner, I'm so much better than this. So I met a man named Eli Wild online. He was actually Tony Robbins' #1 sales rep. And he had enrolled 9 figures in sales in his time with Tony. The closest guy to Eli Wild was making about 10 million, 20 million a year. Eli was bringing in 100 million a year. So close to 10x. And so he sat me down. I remember investing in him, and it was literally the last amount of money that I had in my bank account. I remember my friends and my roommate at the time, Mikey, we actually went to Chipotle, and I tried to swipe my card, and it declined. And I was like, man, I literally gave this guy Eli my last dollar. I better make this shit work, right? So he sat me down. I'm excited. I'm motivated. I'm ready to like double, triple my income. And he goes, all right, Larry, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have you read out these sales principles to yourself every single day. And I'm like, dude, I just paid this guy thousands of dollars and he's telling me to read this sheet of paper as like my first assignment. I was like, dude, tell me how to handle objections. Tell me how to present. What are the questions they're asking? I was like Daniel-san and Mr. Miyagi trying to do all like the kung fu kicks and stuff. And he was like, no, wax on, wax off first, right? And so I truly believe that every person needs to learn the fundamentals. And so Eli and I worked together for 3 months. And within a 90-day period, he helped me go from 15 to 20% in closing to 45% in closing in 3 months. So I was a kid making like 3,000 to 4,000 to now I was making my first 10K month commissions. And it was crazy because I realized the only shift back to what I said earlier was the operating system. What he helped me learn first was how to influence myself. And so this is me with Eli at Funnel Hacking Live. This was a couple months ago. I met him for the first time in person. and really just got to jam with him. He's an amazing human being, not just amazing salesperson, amazing business owner, but a person who really connects at a human level. And so a lot of the work that I do now is how do I humanize sales again? And when Eli sat me down, he said, Larry, there's 4 levels of influence. And make sure to take note of this. The first level of influence is influence of self. This is the foundation. Why this is so important, everyone, is if we walk into a conversation, a Zoom call, an event, and we don't have belief in our offer, in our ability to deliver results, guess what that does for the other person? They don't believe it, right, Tim? And so I realized I was hopping into these conversations with maybe 60, 70% belief. I had to get my certainty to 100%. And so he walked me through a couple exercises, a couple rituals that I'm going to share with you guys here in a little bit. But that was really the first thing that I had to dial down. I had to go from having a negative association to having a meh situation to having 100% certainty that I loved enrollment and I loved sales. Not because of the income, that was a nice byproduct, but because I truly was making an impact for people. And so I had to be open to making those belief shifts. And once I did that, that's when the momentum really started happening. So that's the first level, influence of self. The second level is influence one-to-one. So once we can powerfully influence ourselves, right? Hey, are you getting up when you said you were going to get up? Are you actually doing the gratitude, the morning rituals? Are you doing the morning routines? Are you exercising? Are you getting your energy up? Then he moved me on to the next level. He said, all right, now, young Padawan, you're ready to start influencing other people. And so that's when he started helping me with the tactics, the strategies, what to say during the presentation, what were the right questions to ask at the right time, what were, how to handle the objections. We're going to cover that a little bit here today. But that was the second level, influence one-to-one. Then from there, it was influence one-to-many. How can I then, virtually or in person, create a two-way conversation with my audience in a way that helps influence them to think about their future, to think about their mission, to think about their vision, right? And then last but not least, influence of the masses, legendary influence and impact. We're talking about the Mother Teresa's of the world, the Jesus Christ, the Martin Luther King, the people who even after they pass away, guess what? People are still talking about them hundreds and thousands of years later. And I want to help y'all eventually get to that point where not only are you influencing one to many, if this is something that you're called to, have legendary influence one day as well, right? Any quick questions on the 4 levels of influence before we kind of go into the next thing? Any quick questions? Cool.
How'd you get so smart, Larry?
I just wear a turtleneck like Steve Jobs, man. That's how it works. So let's talk a little about the tools. What are the 5 key tools to improve influence of self? So I always like to start off with energy rituals, right? You guys might be asking, what is an energy ritual? It's things as simple as meditation, breath work that we just did, right? Exercise, that's a physical energy ritual. I talk about this a little bit in depth in Ignite, but there's different types of energy rituals. One is a physical energy ritual, so exercise, running, doing jumping jacks, right? There's a mental energy ritual, so reading, engaging in really types of literature or work that spark genuine curiosity, right? And then there's also spiritual energy rituals, so prayer, doing some sort of gratitude. I know a lot of people go deep in meditation, right? People have plant medicine that they use for spiritual rituals. So these are all different types of energy rituals. My invitation for y'all is figure out what works for you. Don't overcomplicate it. I always say stack them. Find one thing, maybe it's exercise. Then once you master that, then go to meditation if that's the thing. But when you start aligning both your physical, mental, and spiritual energy rituals, that's when you show up so powerful on a call that no matter what objection, no matter what concern, no matter what doubt your prospect might have, you have 100% certainty and alignment, you're gonna help them overcome that. It's not just studying the sales script and understanding what to say, it's really dialing down your energy first. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah? Awesome. Cool. So for example, before this talk, while you guys were eating lunch, I was doing a physical energy ritual of pumping some iron, AKA push-ups, right? And so anything, it could be as quick as a 2 to 3 minute thing, or it could be a 10, 15, 30 minute thing. It really depends on like what's gonna work for you in your schedule, right? Second is an identity doc. So this is what I like to call like just realignment on an everyday basis. Anyone familiar with like the morning formula and like what that is, right? And so it's similar to that. I've tweaked it a little bit to have more images, have a little bit more sales principles focused things. For example, when you're going through a season of, let's say, trying to master marketing, I invite you to put marketing principles on your identity document. If you're, for example, in a season becoming a better leader, write out 10 or 12 principles of some of the best leaders with their quotes, things like that. I'm always intentional about what season am I stepping into and then adapting my identity doc to install those principles. Make sense? Cool. Third is a pre-call ritual. So I have this little paragraph that I got from Eli that he actually received from Tony Robbins, and I read that before every sales call. Reason I do that is because it helps prime me into service, being really a leader, like a servant leader for each one of my prospects, because I don't ever want a sales call to feel like a transaction, right? I'm big on building a relationship over revenue, right? And so what helps me actually get into that service-based mindset first is priming through a pre-call ritual. So I have a document. If you guys want a copy of that, I'm happy to share you guys that document and like some of the things there. Fourth is client testimonials. Anytime I feel like I'm in a little bit of a slump, I love to just go over some client testimonials, help realign me with some of the impact that I made in the past, because it helps me really just think about outside of myself and remember, sometimes we don't need to learn new things. Sometimes we just need to be reminded again of our greatness, right? So client testimonials really help. And then last is, I call this a self-influence recording. This is when I was really insecure about sales calls, right? What I did is I actually had like a 5-minute affirmations that I would read out, I'd record it, and on my morning walks, I just reprogram my subconscious mind listening to that recording. And it's in my own voice. And so anytime that, let's say you're having a sales slump or you're getting in your own head, even things like an audio of when you're like most on fire, most at your potential, those are things that are really important, right? So those are the 5 key tools: energy rituals, identity documents, pre-call rituals, client testimonials, self-influence recording. Any quick questions on any of those tools and like what I do with that process? Cool. Awesome. Let's keep going. So here's my invitation for you guys today. Pick one of these tools, right? Just one of them, and apply it this month. Like I said, don't overwhelm yourself. These things can get really complicated if you try to do everything at once. I always recommend for a lot of people, literally just start with some sort of energy ritual like meditation. Do a 5-minute meditation to calm your nerves before a sales call if you're a little bit too high energy. Now, if you're often a little bit too low energy before sales calls, what I invite you guys to do is some sort of quick like jumping jacks, push-ups, even breath work really helps me if I'm low energy. So a quick check-in. What was most useful for you just now? We'll take 1 or 2 quick takeaways before we move on to the next thing. Cliff?
Operating system.
Operating system.
Foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting the foundation there.
Influencing yourself before you influence others.
Right. Love that. Anyone else? Shelly?
I found that looking back at my client testimonials really helps me, because I know that when I first, and we had this conversation,
Yeah.
I was trying to sell people on how to do a handstand.
Yeah.
And I was like, Larry's like, no one's going to buy a $7,000 program on how to learn how to do a handstand. But when I started working with my clients and like the huge impact that it was having on their lives and like their confidence and like even just the social interactions that they were having with their friends and their family, and it was just, that was when it really occurred to me how much bigger of an impact I was having. And so then showing up on my sales calls, it was so much more natural to be like, this will genuinely change your life, and that is why you should invest, rather than like, I'm going to teach you a handstand, how to be flexible.
Right.
Yeah.
Shelly said something there that was super important, which is this principle of sell futures, not features. Sell their future, their ideal version of themselves, as opposed to just a feature of your program or service?
Write that down.
That's a write it downer. There you go. Awesome, y'all. So here's the second belief shift to really pay attention to. Sales is leadership. Really changing what sales actually means in this new modern world. Quick poll. When you guys think of leadership, right? What's your guys' definition of being a leader? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What is that?
Influence.
Influence, right? Anyone else?
Modeling.
Modeling, yes. Anyone?
Building a team.
Building a team. Antoinette?
Someone you hold accountable.
Accountable, yes. Any others?
Guiding.
Guiding. I love that, Emily. So I actually just took the definition from the internet, and leading, based on this definition, is three things. To guide on a way, especially by going in advance, to direct on a course or in a direction, or to serve as a channel for. So I want you guys to pay attention to those three key things: to guide, to direct, to serve as a channel for people. And when I stop thinking about sales as trying to be a transaction, or I need to make my commission, or I need to pitch this person and tell them how great we are, but instead change it to this, that's when the dots started connecting. And sales doesn't have to be high pressure, it doesn't have to be gimmicky, it doesn't have to be disempowering or salesy. And we can really create leadership from an empowered position when it comes to sales. And really, our one job is this: let's help people make the best decision for themselves. If it's our offer, great, make a recommendation. If it's not, direct them somewhere else. And that's okay. Right? Because as I really started to develop this servant leader frame, I started to not only feel better about what I was doing, but also my prospects. Right? They started to feel really great. It was crazy going from everyone arms crossed, telling me to get off the Zoom, to I'm not interested, to now I've grown men tearing up on my calls because they're so thankful. And I'm taking them to such an emotional deep state that they've realized what their full potential is. Those are two different things, right? One is leadership, one is just trying to collect a credit card for your own reasons, right? And so we are problem finders and not product pushers. At the end of the day, I just want to figure out, is there even a problem that I can help this person with? Because if I can't, I'm not going to make up some BS on like why I can. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest mistake that I used to make, and what I really learned was I was so quick to get to the pitch that I never spent enough time to truly understand if I can even help this person in the first place. Right, y'all? Mm-hmm. So I think that's why it's so important to not push our products. We got to find our problem. And third, my intention with any of these calls is as I constantly want to be diffusing sales pressure and sales resistance. Guess what I used to do? I used to hop on a call and immediately in the first 1 to 2 minutes create sales resistance for my prospects. So literally, I was fighting an uphill battle for the next 45 minutes to 60 minutes because I already triggered their guard up from the very beginning. What I did was, what if I just never triggered their sales resistance in the first place? I often have people after the call, after they enroll, either one, thanking me, but then two, being like, I didn't even think I was in a sales conversation. How do you do that? And it's like, it's okay. I'll show you inside the program. So my whole job is to diffuse it. If there is sales resistance coming, lower down the guard. It's okay, right? Because it's natural to feel this way. So how do I work with humans instead of against human nature, right? Fourth, we actively listen so that we can ask the right questions at the right time. Anyone here guilty of, at least maybe in the beginning, you ask a question, your prospect is telling you, their answer, and then you're looking at the script and what the next question is to ask. Anyone guilty of that? It's okay, give me a little, it's okay. It's okay. Because that's a natural training wheel that happens, but one of the things that I really learned was when I upgraded my ability to actively listen, that's when I knew I was just fully present for the prospect and I could actually ask the right question based on what they were actually telling me. Meeting them where they were at as opposed to like what was in my head, right? Oftentimes, your biggest enemy on a sales call is not your prospect. It's all the mental chatter that's happening in your head while you're having that conversation. And so how do we quiet our own mental chatter so we can fully be present to what they're communicating, right? And last but not least, we work with people rather than against them, right? And so these were the core principles that Eli really started installing in me. And I wasn't just taking notes. I started to embody this in my everyday life. When I was having a conversation with my mom, instead of having selective hearing, sorry mom if you're watching this, I actually was just present to her and what she was saying, making her feel heard, making her feel understood. When I was having, let's say, a catch-up call with one of my friends, I wasn't trying to push advice. I was asking questions and like, hey, what's going on? Why did that happen? Okay, how does that make you feel? How's that been affecting you? And really just getting to the core. And so really from there, I really wanted to take this to the next level. I said, okay, now I got my operating system. Now I got this idea of like what leadership truly is. How do I take it to the next level with enrollment? So I invite you guys to really ascend, if you guys are ready for it, to how do we go from the old way of selling to the new way of enrollment and what that actually means. You guys ready for this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So here's the thing, and this is something to be very, very key on. When you communicate only in your values, right? When you're only talking about how great you are, what you've been able to done, how you think this is going to be perfect fit, that's selling, right? Now, when you communicate in terms of their values and find alignment possibly with your values, now we're stepping into enrollment. So the key difference here is how do we get in their world first, ask permission to share our world, help them get into our unique offering and what that might mean for them, the possibility there, and then find the harmony between them. Because that's what's truly enrollment is. Selling oftentimes is people just talking about their values, but when we get into enrollment, it's about both parties' values, right? Anyone in here married? Raise your hands. Most of the room, right? How great would your guys' marriage be if only you were talking about your values and what you cared about? Terrible, right? So why do we hop on a sales call thinking that's going to be a great idea? Just like any great partnership or any great marriage, it's a two-way street, right? So I want to help you guys uncover what does it mean to actually get in their values? What does it mean to appropriately and confidently share our values and find harmony in that? Because anytime you're hopping on a call and wanting to enroll someone, this should be your intention. To powerfully align that person with their highest vision, their highest values, and the highest version of themselves. Right? Their highest vision, their highest values, and the highest version of themselves. When I'm on a conversation, I don't say, hey, do you think that having this lead gen system is going to help you with your business? I say, hey, do you feel confident with our help here and our support here that not only you're going to have a business that hits $100K per month, but you can take your wife and your family to Disneyland. You can finally take that vacation to Cancun. And most importantly, when you're sitting there drinking your morning coffee, you're at peace with life. You feel confident. So I'm talking about a vision that they have for themselves, not just, hey, are you going to feel confident with this system here? I'm tying it to both, right? And so why is this so damn important? Well, here's the core problem, right? 90% of people are focused on trying to perfect their pitch or their presentation. But here's the truth. And Eli told me this, and it took me a couple times to really realize this, but he would always say this on every call. He would say, Larry, 85% of the sale is made during discovery. It's the questions you ask at the right time that helps you uncover their values, their vision, and what they really care about. It's not trying to be the best presenter. It's not knowing the ninja tactics on handling objections. That plays a part. That's only 50%. The most actual important part is discovery. So I want to help you guys really nail down and master that one thing, right? And for us, how do we become the top 10% that earns 90% of the money? It's really in learning that first. So we're gonna help you guys understand presenting, we're gonna help you guys understand objection handling, but I wanna help you guys really dial down discovery, not just here in the event today, but also in the future. And here's what I learned after taking thousands of sales calls and analyzing hundreds of other people's sales calls. Both sales coaches and mentors like Eli that I've analyzed, and also some of my students. Here's what I really learned. The ideal call structure, right? This is the same structure that helped me close 67% last quarter. I used to close at 15, 20% on cold traffic. Now it's 67%.
Woo!
And it was those two things.
Man.
Right? It's learning the operating system and learning the actual apps, the strategies, the structure, right? So who here wants to see behind the matrix?
Come on.
Y'all ready?
Yeah.
All right,
Yes.
that's it. Cool. So here's a breakdown of my one call close structure. Now, before we go into this, quick caveat. I'm not here to be a proponent of you have to close every conversation in one call. I'm just the badass that tries to do that all the time. Right? And I want to help you guys get there. But oftentimes when I first started, it sometimes took 2 to 3 calls, sometimes more, and that's okay, right? But here's what I ideally found to be able to actually enroll people in one call. So the ideal call is 45 minutes. Any longer than that, you'll get a lot of let me think about it objections, right? Any shorter than that, it didn't go deep enough, and people will often feel like there's not enough value, or they haven't really discovered and understood that you understood their problems. So here's how I break it down. Like Eli said, discovery is 85% of where the sales made. 20 to 30 minutes of my call is spent in the discovery portion, which I call phase 1. This is where I'm doing a quick intro, I'm asking the questions, right? I'm getting super clear on what their problem is, what their goal is, and what's the cost of not doing it. Phase 2 is a presentation. I literally spend 5 to 10 minutes in presentation. I used to have sales calls where I would spend an hour presenting. Guess how that made the other person feel?
Oh my God.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah,
Too
exactly.
I gotta pick these kids up.
Exactly. So I said, what if I just flipped it on the head? What if I spent 20 to 30 minutes going deep on them, what they cared about, their values, and I literally spent 10% of the time talking about me, right? And then from there, phase 3 is the commitment phase. That's literally 5%. And I put a star and an asterisk because ideally, if I did everything right, it should only take about 5 minutes. Little logistical questions here and there. But if we need to do some objection handling, there might be 30 minutes or more. I've literally been on sales calls where objection was handled for over an hour. Then the person actually enrolled at the end of the call. So I could spend 30, 35 minutes in the first 2 phases, and sometimes objection handling, based on where their beliefs are, I will sit down with a person, and sometimes it's just a war of attrition, and they're just like, all right, you got me, let's go. Let's do this. But I take a stand for people on calls. If I know that potential is in them, and I know it's possible, I will sit there until they're ready. I won't always do that, because sometimes it's not the best decision for people. But if I know there's a likelihood of them getting off the call and talking themselves out of it, I'm going to double down in objection handling. So that's just a quick caveat. So here's phase 1. There's 10 parts. Now, I'm going to share with you guys a resource on breaking down every single one of these parts, so that's okay if you don't take notes. But it's really 10 key parts that I've tested, optimized, readapted. I'm on version 4 of my Power Enrollment call script now, and it's really these 10 things. It's the intro, not 3-5 minutes of talking about the weather. I keep it really quick, hey, where are you calling from? Awesome, how long you live there? Awesome, cool. And then it's really getting into the agenda. From there, I do a really quick, non-salesy agenda. I really say, hey, if you feel like it might be helpful, what I'd really love to do is just see if there's possible alignment, what you might be looking for, and what we got here. Would that be fair? Cool, awesome. What inspired you to hop on today's call? Quick. Now I'm in my first connecting phase question. Once I'm there, these first 3 parts literally take 2 to 3 minutes. I'm going straight into figuring out what their situation is. I figure out what they got going on, how long they've been doing it, what their offer is, price points, all that fun stuff. Then I go straight into problem awareness. This right here is probably the most important piece of my discovery in phase 1, because that's where I go really deep. And Shirley knows this. I'll go super deep with certain people on sales conversations.
Okay.
I call
I
them
noticed I was
4
taking your
levels of
spot.
pain. I want to go 4 levels deep with certain people. I'll ask them, hey, what has caused that problem? How long have you been feeling that issue for now, right? Duration, time. I'll ask them, well, how has that affected you? All right, in the business, personally, how's that affecting other people? And then I'll go into like, okay, well, why is this something that you're possibly considering changing now, as opposed to trying to figure it out on your own, right? The rationale. And from there, once I figure out, their hell and what their pain is, right? Now I'm going into their heaven, right? What are they ideally looking for? What's their goals, visions, desires, right? Painting that picture. And then I go into the most important piece of my conversation. This is the cost of inaction. What happens if nothing changes, right? Like I'm glad we can tie up the desires and the vision where you want to be, but what happens if you're never able to actually become independent and own a business of yourself? What happens if 5, 10 years from now you're still working for someone else and you're making good money, but you're not able to actually have the fulfillment, the freedom, and most importantly, the contribution that you're able to make, right? And then from there, just a couple tie downs. So timing, like why is this important for you now, and then transition and permission to make the pitch. So I go more in depth into this stuff in Ignite, and I have some sales training that goes into each section, but I wanted to give you guys a quick overview here. Any quick questions on this? All making sense? Tracking?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Second part. So I go into what I call the Trident presentation.
Oh, actually, Larry, there's a question here
From Emily.
from Emily.
What's the question, Michael?
What is the difference between solution awareness and GBD?
Yes. Okay. So solution awareness, Emily, is where I'm really focused on figuring out what have they tried in the past, what was missing, what didn't work, and what are they ideally looking for moving forward, right? Now, here's why this is super important. You don't want to get to the end of a sales conversation and have someone saying, okay, well, I'm also talking to
Can you text Nico
you know,
to message
I
Michael,
hope this person talks to the other person because
the chef,
that's the best decision for me, so get clarity. I
that
actually have them
I'm in the middle of a
through these
presentation
questions and say, hey, what have you
with the
tried,
laptop.
or what are you also considering right now?
and the phone is being
like, oh,
engaged,
well,
so I can't
yeah,
really call him, tell him
say,
like
Dan Martel?
just
I was
message
like, okay,
Nico.
well, what's got in the way
to
that you
message
pull
him.
the trigger with them? Oh, well, I guess the convenience in there. Oh, okay, so in, I guess, what you're looking for, I guess, what do you specifically ideally need so that you can be in a position to fully, make that 10K month and get to a position where you're like consistent? What do you feel like you're looking for? And so now she's telling me the ideal solution, and I have ammo for my presentation. Hey, so Emily, remember when you were telling me that what you were actually looking for was hand-on-hand development for systems? Here in phase 1, this is exactly what we're doing. Here's how we do it. X, Y, and Z benefits, all that stuff, right? So that's solution awareness, Emily. And then from there, GVD, goals, vision, desires, is where I get them to actually paint what they want in life. So not just the income and the revenue or the ideal dating life or better health. I get them to, okay, well, why is that important? Why do you actually want to hit 100K per month business? Well, I want to get to a point where I'm fully actually financially providing, not just for my family, but my parents. Right? Okay, well, how would that feel being able to actually supply that lifestyle for your family? Like, how would things change? And so now I'm not just talking about numbers, I'm talking the vision, I'm talking desires, I'm talking about why they actually want to do this. So let me know if that makes sense, Emily, if you have any questions on like the difference between the two, but to keep it really simple, solution awareness is like, what is kind of like the ideal solution they want, what have they tried? And then goals and visions and desires is just like, what is the ideal lifestyle they want to create if they have that solution? Let me know if that makes sense and if you have any follow-up questions.
Makes sense, thank you.
Beautiful. Cool. So phase 2, the Trident presentation. I like to focus on 3 core pillars that align their process with the highest vision and values and version of themselves. I don't necessarily have time to go super in-depth into phase 2 today. I'm going to go in-depth more into phase 3 tomorrow, and I'll share the resource to go in-depth with phase 1 for discovery. But really, I just want to help explain the structure and the process of how you're going to be able to help them achieve their desired outcome. Because we can talk about like what they want to achieve, but if they don't have at least a high picture of like how they're going to achieve it, it makes it really hard for people to like get that aha moment for the presentation, right? And then third is the commitment phase. Get them committed to the process and have them explain why they think this can be the ideal solution for them, right? Tie down uncertainty on not just you, but your process and also themselves. Because there's 3 levels of certainty that we need, and write this one down, y'all, because this is really important, is they need certainty in themselves, they need certainty in you as a human being. Do I actually like you? Do I trust you, right? But do they also have certainty in this is the vehicle and the process that's gonna help them achieve their goals, right? Because people can hop on a call, hop off, and be like, yeah, I love you. I like what you're doing. I appreciate everything that you're doing. But I don't believe in myself. So they're not gonna enroll. So you gotta really tie down for those 3 things. Themselves, you, and most importantly as well, the process. And then phase 3 is also an opportunity for us to handle any questions, concerns, objections they might have about the program. And then at the end, make the offer. Tell the price, if it's a fit, and there's no qualms, collect the payment, and enroll them inside the program then and there, right? I often don't like waiting to send them an invoice and have them wait. I just enroll them then and there, so we're really tying down that certainty, and I can help them feel excited about their step moving forward, right? Any quick questions on phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3, real quick? Cool, awesome. So I'll send you guys a link of phase 1 of this power enrollment call script. It goes in depth in all these different parts. If you guys want access to phase 2 and phase 3, just let me know. But like I said, I would invite that you guys master this first, and then I'll help you guys with phase 2, the presentation, and also the handling of objections and concerns. So what's one takeaway you guys just had? What was something you just loved? We'll take 1 or 2 before we move on to the last thing here and wrap up.
I'm loving all of it, mainly because it's very similar to what I do. We talked about it when we chatted, and it's just giving me a lot around maybe resistance that I have to mixing strategy with mindset.
Yes.
So I love the way it's landed, and a lot of what you've shared is like, for me, speaking to the choir, but it's really well put. And just like your pace and how you deliver it is so awesome. So not only is it in the content, but you're modeling it.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank you. And what Patty just said is like so key. I don't want anyone to miss that. Modeling it.
Yeah.
I'm embodying the script just like I'm embodying my values and vision here with you all. Right? It's an energy thing. It's a presence thing. It's not a, oh, did I spend like 10 minutes trying to memorize all these like slides? I probably went through this slide 1 time before I delivered it for y'all. But it's just because I've embodied this script in my being, in my presence, that I'm going to deliver that. Right? And I want to give you guys the same possibility that when you hop on a conversation, Tim, or a Cliff, when you're having a coaching call, that who you are speaks so loudly that they can't even hear you know, all the noise that's happening in their outside world. Right? Anyone else? Antoinette?
Well, there were a ton of things that I loved, but just to zero down on a few things, the part where you said get them to talk about why your program can help them
Yes.
was like really key, and then the 3 phases of certainty.
Yes.
So that they believe in themselves, they believe in you, and then they believe in your vehicle or in your product, whatever it is. That it can truly help them, because we were talking yesterday, and I was saying that, you know, I had this lady who said, she just said, it's a me problem. It's not a you problem. It's my mindset.
Yes.
And so getting them to talk through, getting them to actually say, hey, why this program can work for me. I feel like in that particular moment, it could have been the thing that would have switched her over, because I didn't end up calling her, but I do have a sales call with her next week.
Beautiful.
So I didn't close her, but I was trying to think of ways, and just that one key component to have them talk about how your program can help them is super powerful.
Yes. We were talking about that, right? Because if you tell them how this is going to help their world, they'll believe it to a certain extent. But when you ask the right question to have them admit to themselves why this would work, that's a whole different level of influence.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Inception. They're selling themselves on like why this would work. So I don't say, hey, you think this would work for you, right? I say, hey, Susie, based on what we talked about, do you feel like this process could possibly be the answer for what you're looking for? And she goes, yeah. Okay, well, why do you feel like it can work for you though? And then she's saying, well, the community. Well, this is the exact systems that I need help with. This is the actual support that I need when I'm doubting myself. Okay, well, do you feel confident with Kim and our team here that not only are you going to hit 100K per month, but you're going to be in a position where you feel empowered, that you're actually the leader that shows up for your team. And not only are you changing your life, but you're changing the lives of thousands of other people, like you said. Do you feel confident in that? And they're like, yes. Okay, well, based on that, I think there's alignment. You know, where do you kind of want to go from here? And then they tell me, well, I want to learn more about how next steps. Okay, cool, I'll share that. And then I share the price and investment. And I didn't tell them and push them in the program. They asked me for what was next steps. And that one small shift changes the dynamic because I'm no longer selling. I'm just helping guide them to what they want. So that's a key difference with my phase 3 and commitment and how I used to close, because I used to take that assumptive close, like, okay, well, do you feel like this would work? Yes or no? Okay, was that Visa or MasterCard? And like, it would work, but I didn't feel necessarily great about it. And so now I have something that doesn't just work and it works really damn well, but I feel so amazing about it. And that's the change that really lit me up, right? Any other questions on that? Any last minute takeaways before we wrap this up?
The problem and awareness.
Yes.
That's because once they tell you the problem and you hear their problem out, they're basically telling you, this is what's stopping me.
Yes. Yes, Tim.
This is, and it 9 times out of 10 goes back to the mindset.
Mindset.
It's the belief system.
Exactly. And with your offer, Tim, the beautiful thing about it is you help people uncover problems they didn't even know they think they had.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you ask the right questions in your guys' process, that's the possibility there. And so any last minute takeaways before we move on to the last thing here, y'all? All sound good? Awesome? Cool. So is it okay with everyone if I provide one last quick perspective shift before we go?
Yeah.
All right? Is it cool if I get a little vulnerable? Is that okay? So I'm sharing this because it really taught me the lesson of the difference between sales and enrollment. This was a year after COVID. So about 2021, I was with a group of my guy friends, and we were in Newport Beach in California. So COVID's rough for a lot of people. It was rough for me. It was really rough for particularly one of my friends, Ben. He was cooped up in a apartment for over a year, didn't have friends really visiting him. He was always a person that kind of struggled with mental health. And I remember seeing him for the first time in like a year and a half. And we were out having fun, Newport Beach. It was a guy's weekend. Like, we were getting a little crunk, right? And it was a good time until it wasn't. And here's what I meant by this. Ben got so drunk that there was a point where he started running towards the street. And I would see incoming cars coming. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, Ben, what's happening here? And I literally witnessed him, a car barely miss him, about to hit him. And next thing I know, I'm just shocked. Me and my friends are looking at each other. What is going on? And Ben's very drunk. He's kind of being a danger to people in the street, and he's bolting to the beach. I'm like, what's going on? So me and my friends are going a full sprint. We're worried. We're nervous. We're like, what is going on in this guy's mind? And we get to the beach. And in that moment, I realized that Ben was trying to take his life. And I'm looking at my friend Griffin, and he doesn't know what to do. He's trying to stop Ben physically. We got 3-4 guys trying to stop him. And mind you, Ben's like a big guy. He's like a linebacker type physique. So no one could physically stop him. And I'm there freaking out, worried that my friend's about to pass out or pass away because he's ready to take his life. And I remember getting in front of Ben, and I went in enrollment mode. And I said, Ben, what's happening right now? What's getting in your way? He's like, Larry, get the fuck out. Get out of my way. I don't need you right now. I sat him down. I was like, Ben, listen, not a problem. Let's sit down. Just sit down with me. So me and Ben sat down for an hour and a half and asked him, Ben, think about your family. What's the ideal family you want? Where do you want your life to be in? I know and I can appreciate the place that you're coming from is tough, but there's a future ahead of you that's much better. What's your future you want for yourself, Ben? And I kept asking questions after question. What was the future? What was the future? What's your hopes? What's your vision? What's your desire, Ben? And I got him to think about his future. And because I had the power of enrollment in that moment, everyone, I was able to save a life that day. I was able to save a friend. And so why I say that story is because enrollment is more than just trying to get a transaction and try to have a sale. When you truly embody this practice, this craft, enrollment can not just save a life, it can save a marriage, it can instill values in your kids to help them become an amazing human being. You can be an amazing individual for others and serve as a beacon of light for people. That's the true power of enrollment. Because here's my invitation to you. Is a new possibility and an operating system that you're not just making more money, but you have a bigger impact on your clients, you're improving your relationships, and you have a greater sense of fulfillment and mission. Because I invite you this important question. Because if one day, maybe it's a year, maybe it's a month from now, maybe even if it's tomorrow, what if you get a call from a loved one saying, honey, I want a divorce? Or your close friend that says, bro, I'm looking at a balcony now, I want to jump off. Talk me out of it. Or maybe it's your son that's just misbehaving in school and he's going down the wrong path. My question for you is, do you have the power of enrollment to help equip you to help those people that are most important in your life? Because what are you going to do today so that you can be in a position to overcome whatever comes at you in life? And I invite that possibility for you guys. Thank you.
That was so good.